Prince William was sitting in his favorite armchair reading the morning newspaper when his phone started ringing loudly. The sound made him jump a little because the house was so quiet and peaceful. He looked at the screen and saw it was the Prime Minister calling him directly. This was unusual because important calls like this usually came through his private secretary first. William answered the phone quickly and heard the Prime Minister speaking in a worried voice. There was a big problem that needed to be solved, right away. A very important charity event was happening in Manchester in just 2 days. The event was meant to honor all the brave healthcare workers who had worked so hard during difficult times. These were the doctors, nurses, and hospital staff who had helped so many people when they were sick and scared. The problem was that the main speaker for the event had suddenly become very ill and could not attend. Thousands of people were already planning to come to the event. Many healthcare workers had asked for time off from their jobs just to be there. The organizers were worried that people would be disappointed if they had to cancel or change everything at the last minute. The Prime Minister asked if William could come and speak at the event instead. He explained that the healthcare workers really needed to feel appreciated and honored for all their hard work. The event was supposed to make them feel special and valued by the whole country. William listened carefully and knew this was something very important that he should do. But then William looked across the room and saw his wife Kate helping their youngest son Louis with his breakfast. Louis was making a mess with his cereal, and Kate was patiently cleaning his face while trying to keep him from spilling milk everywhere. Their daughter Charlotte was at the table too, asking Kate to help her tie her hair in a special way. Their oldest son George was getting ready for school and looking for his missing shoe. William realized that this charity event was happening during the children's school holiday. This meant that George, Charlotte, and Louis would not be in school. If William and Kate went to Manchester, they would need to bring all 3 children with them. William had been to many royal events before, but taking 3 young children to such an important public event would be very different and much more challenging. Kate looked up from helping Louis and saw the serious expression on William's face. She could tell from the way he was talking on the phone that something important was happening. She quietly moved closer to listen while still keeping an eye on the children. When William explained about the charity event and the sick speaker, Kate immediately understood why this was so important. Kate thought about all the healthcare workers she had met during hospital visits. She remembered their tired faces and how hard they worked to help others. She knew that these people deserved to be honored and celebrated. Even though bringing 3 children to such a big public event would be difficult, she felt it was the right thing to do. William told the Prime Minister that he would need a few minutes to discuss this with Kate and then call back with an answer. After he hung up the phone, he and Kate talked quietly while the children continued eating their breakfast. They both knew that George, Charlotte, and Louis could be unpredictable in public. The children were usually well-behaved, but they were still young and sometimes did unexpected things that made people laugh or worry. Charlotte had once waved so enthusiastically at a crowd that she nearly fell over. Louis sometimes got shy and hid behind Kate's dress when too many people were looking at him. George tried very hard to be mature and responsible, but he was still only a child and sometimes forgot to follow all the royal rules. Kate and William looked at each other and both smiled at the same time. They knew their children might make the event more challenging, but they also knew that children often brought joy and happiness to serious occasions. People loved seeing the royal children because they reminded everyone of their own families. William called his private secretary right away to start making arrangements for the trip to Manchester. Within minutes of William's phone call to his private secretary, Kensington Palace turned into a place of organized madness. Staff members were running up and down the hallways carrying clipboards and making urgent phone calls. Everyone knew they had less than 2 days to prepare for a very important royal visit that would include 3 young children. Kate immediately went upstairs to the children's bedrooms to look through their wardrobes. She needed to find clothes that would look proper and royal, but also be comfortable enough for active children to wear all day. She pulled out several outfits and laid them on the beds, trying to imagine how each child would feel wearing them. For hours. George's room was neat and organized, just like his personality. Kate found his best navy blue suit and matching shoes. But when she showed the outfit to George, he made a face and complained loudly about the formal shoes. He said they hurt his feet and made it hard for him to walk normally. George preferred his comfortable sneakers and did not understand why he had to wear shoes that pinched his toes just because they looked fancier. Charlotte's room was full of colorful dresses and accessories. Kate chose a beautiful pink dress with a matching cardigan that Charlotte had worn to other special events. But Charlotte had her own ideas about what she wanted to wear. She insisted that she needed to bring her favorite stuffed rabbit named Hopscotch everywhere she went. Charlotte explained very seriously that Hopscotch would be scared if he had to stay home alone while the family went on such an important trip. Little Louis was the most excited about the whole adventure. When Kate told him they were going to ride in the big royal car with flashing lights, his eyes got very wide and he started jumping up and down. Louis loved cars and trucks and anything that moved fast. He kept asking if they could use the sirens and if he could wave to people from the window like he had seen in movies. Meanwhile, William was in his study trying to write a speech for the healthcare workers while also answering the children's constant questions. Charlotte came running in every few minutes to ask him something different. She wanted to know if there would be other children at the event, and if she would be allowed to talk to them. George appeared in the doorway asking if he would need to shake hands with lots of people, and if he should practice his formal greeting. The palace staff was working frantically to coordinate all the details of the trip. The security team needed to plan the safest route to Manchester and check the venue thoroughly. The transportation department had to prepare the royal cars and make sure there were enough car seats for the children. The media relations team was already getting calls from newspapers and television stations who wanted to cover the royal family's visit. Kate called her mother Carol in the middle of all the preparation chaos. She needed some motherly advice about managing 3 children during such an important public appearance. Carol listened patiently as Kate worried about what might go wrong. What if Louis got cranky and started crying in front of all the cameras? What if Charlotte forgot her royal manners and did something embarrassing? What if George felt too much pressure and became nervous? Carol reminded Kate that children are naturally charming and that people always enjoy seeing them. She suggested packing extra snacks, small toys, and maybe some coloring books to keep the children occupied during quiet moments. Carol also recommended bringing backup clothes just in case someone spilled something or got dirty. The family's usual calm and peaceful routine was completely disrupted. Instead of quiet breakfast conversations and leisurely morning activities, there were rushing footsteps on the stairs, phones ringing constantly, and the sound of suitcases being dragged from closets. The children could feel the excitement and energy in the house, which made them even more energetic than usual. By evening, Kate had managed to choose appropriate outfits for everyone and pack everything they might need for the trip. Early the next morning, the royal convoy left Kensington Palace with 3 black cars following each other in a perfect line. William and Kate sat in the main car with their 3 children, trying to keep everyone happy and entertained during the long 3-hour drive to Manchester. The children had woken up extra early because they were so excited about the adventure ahead of them. George brought his handheld video game and sat quietly in his seat playing it. He was trying very hard to be the responsible older brother and set a good example for Charlotte and Louis. Every few minutes he would look up from his game to check if his younger siblings were behaving properly. George felt proud that his parents trusted him to help take care of Charlotte and Louis during such an important trip. Charlotte had packed a small bag with her favorite coloring books and a box of crayons. She was working on a picture of a rainbow and flowers that she planned to give to one of the healthcare workers they would meet. Charlotte was very careful with her coloring and wanted to make sure every line was perfect. She asked Kate several times if her picture was beautiful enough to give as a gift to someone special. Little Louis was the most restless passenger in the car. Even though he was excited about the trip, sitting still for 3 hours was very difficult for a 5-year-old boy. Every 10 minutes he would ask if they were there yet in his loud, clear voice. Louis kept pressing his face against the window to look at all the cars and trucks they were passing on the highway. William tried to keep the children calm by explaining what they would see and do at the charity event. He told them about the healthcare workers they would meet and why these people were so important and special. William reminded all 3 children about proper royal behavior and how they should act when there were cameras and lots of people watching them. Kate had packed a large bag full of snacks, juice boxes, and small toys to keep the children occupied during the long car ride. She knew that hungry or bored children could become cranky children very quickly. Kate also brought wet wipes, tissues, and extra clothes just in case someone made a mess or had an accident. Halfway through the journey, disaster struck when Louis accidentally knocked over his juice box while reaching for a toy. The apple juice spilled all over his white dress shirt, creating a big sticky stain right in the middle of his chest. Louis started to cry because he thought he had ruined his special outfit and that everyone would be angry with him. Kate quickly comforted Louis and told him that accidents happen to everyone. She had brought extra clothes for exactly this type of situation. Right there in the moving car, Kate carefully changed Louis into a clean shirt while William helped hold him steady. The whole process was tricky because they had to do it while wearing seatbelts and staying safe in the moving vehicle. The children found it fascinating to watch the countryside change as they got closer to Manchester. They saw fields full of sheep, small villages with old churches, and eventually bigger towns with more traffic and buildings. Charlotte kept pointing out interesting things she saw through the window, like horses in fields and colorful flowers in gardens. George tried to act like a tour guide for his younger siblings, explaining things he recognized from his geography lessons at school. He pointed to different types of buildings and tried to guess how old they were. George felt very grown up when he could answer Charlotte's questions about what they were seeing. As they approached Manchester, the children could see more and more. People on the streets holding British flags and welcome signs. Some people had even brought their own children to wait along the route, hoping to catch a glimpse of the royal family. When the royal convoy finally arrived at the Manchester venue, hundreds of people were already waiting behind barriers on both sides of the street. The moment the black cars came into view, the crowd erupted in loud cheers and enthusiastic applause. Children were sitting on their parents' shoulders waving small British flags, and many people were holding homemade welcome signs with the family's names written in colorful letters. The first car door opened and William stepped out, looking handsome and confident in his dark blue suit. The crowd cheered even louder when they saw him wave and smile at everyone. Then Kate appeared, looking absolutely beautiful in her elegant royal blue dress and matching jacket. Her hair was perfectly styled and she wore a graceful smile as she acknowledged the enthusiastic welcome from all the people. But the biggest cheers came when the three children emerged from the car. Kate held Louis's small hand tightly while William guided George and Charlotte toward the red carpet that had been rolled out for their arrival. The children's eyes became very wide as they looked around at all the people, cameras, and colorful decorations that had been prepared for their visit. Charlotte was the first child to react to the crowd. She gave a small, shy wave with her free hand, which made everyone cheer and clap even more loudly. Some people in the crowd called out her name and told her how pretty she looked in her pink dress. Charlotte smiled brightly and waved again, this time with more confidence because she could see how happy she was making all the people. Little Louis felt overwhelmed by all the noise and attention at first. He quickly moved to hide behind Kate's blue dress, peeking out just enough to see what was happening around him. Kate bent down and whispered something encouraging in his ear, which made him feel braver. Slowly, Louis came out from behind his mother's dress and looked around at all the smiling faces in the crowd. George walked beside his father, trying very hard to copy William's confident stride and polite nods to the people. He remembered all the lessons he had learned about royal behavior and wanted to make his parents proud. George stood up straight, kept his shoulders back, and tried to look mature and responsible even though he was feeling nervous and excited at the same time. The family paused on the red carpet for official photographs with the local officials, who had organized the charity event. The photographers called out instructions and took dozens of pictures from different angles. During one of these photo sessions, Louis made a funny face by sticking out his tongue just a little bit. The photographers captured this moment, and the picture would later become very popular on social media because it showed Louis being a normal, playful child. Kate looked absolutely elegant and poised, but anyone watching carefully could see that. Most of her attention was focused on the children. She kept glancing at each of them to make sure they felt comfortable and safe in this new environment. Kate was always ready to help if any of the children needed her, while still maintaining her graceful royal appearance for all the cameras and spectators. The event organizers were absolutely delighted to see how the children's presence had completely changed the atmosphere of the whole occasion. Instead of a formal and serious royal visit, The children had created a feeling of joy, warmth, and celebration. People in the crowd were smiling and laughing as they watched the children's natural reactions to everything around them. Security. Guards formed a protective circle around the family, but they were also smiling as they watched Louis point at things that interested him and Charlotte wave at people in the crowd. Even the serious-looking police officers couldn't help but grin when George tried to shake hands with one of the local officials, just like he had seen his father do many times before. The children's genuine curiosity and innocent reactions reminded everyone that despite their royal status, they were still just normal children experiencing something new and exciting. This made the crowd feel more connected to the royal family and created a special atmosphere that no one had expected when the event was first planned. Inside the beautifully decorated venue, the royal family was introduced to the real stars of the event, the healthcare workers, teachers, and volunteers who had worked so hard to help others during the most difficult times. These were the people who had stayed late at hospitals, worked extra shifts, and missed time with their own families to take care of patients who were sick and scared. The first person they met was Sarah, a nurse who had worked at the local hospital for 15 years. Sarah looked tired but happy as she explained to William and Kate how she and her colleagues had worked day and night to help patients recover. The children listened carefully as Sarah told them about the special equipment she used and how she helped people feel better when they were not feeling well. Charlotte was fascinated by Sarah's nurse uniform and asked if she could touch the stethoscope that was hanging around Sarah's neck. Sarah smiled warmly and let Charlotte listen to her own heartbeat through the medical instrument. Charlotte's eyes got very wide when she heard the sound of her heart beating inside her chest, and she immediately wanted to share this amazing discovery with her brothers. George asked Sarah very serious questions about her work, wanting to understand exactly what nurses do to help sick people. He listened carefully to her answers and nodded thoughtfully, just like he had seen his father do during important conversations. George was genuinely interested in learning about Sarah's job and wanted to know how someone becomes a nurse and how long they have to study. Little Louis became completely fascinated when they met Tom, a paramedic who worked in ambulances. Tom was wearing his green uniform and had brought some of his medical equipment to show the children. Louis asked if he could try on Tom's stethoscope and was amazed when Tom let him listen to his own heartbeat, and then Kate's heartbeat too. Tom explained to Louis how ambulances work and what paramedics do when they get emergency calls. Louis was full of questions about the sirens, the flashing lights, and all the special equipment inside the ambulance. Tom patiently answered every question, and even let Louis hold his medical bag, which made the little boy feel very important and grown up. The family then met Jennifer, a teacher who had found creative ways to help her students learn from home. When schools were closed, Jennifer had worked extra hours to make sure no child missed out on their education, even when everything was different and difficult. She told Charlotte and George about the fun activities she had created to make learning enjoyable even when students couldn't be together in the classroom. Charlotte immediately felt a connection with Jennifer and shyly reached into her small purse to pull out the rainbow picture she had colored in the car. Charlotte had been saving this drawing to give to someone special, and she decided that Jennifer was the perfect person to receive her artwork. Jennifer was so touched by Charlotte's thoughtful gift that her eyes filled with tears of happiness. George was impressed by Jennifer's dedication to her students and asked her about different subjects she taught. Jennifer was surprised by how much George knew about geography and history, and they had an interesting conversation about different countries and their capitals. George felt proud that he could have a grown-up conversation with such an important person. The children's genuine curiosity and innocent questions touched the hearts of all the healthcare workers and volunteers they met. These adults were used to being busy and serious at work, but the children's natural charm made them smile and laugh in ways they hadn't for a long time. The healthcare workers were amazed by how polite and interested the children were in their work. Kate often knelt down to Charlotte's level when her daughter wanted to whisper something or ask a private question. Kate made sure that Charlotte felt comfortable and confident enough to interact with all these new people. William lifted Louis up so he could see better when the little boy seemed overwhelmed by all the tall adults standing around him. The healthcare workers were deeply moved by how the royal children treated them like the heroes they truly were, asking thoughtful questions and showing genuine appreciation for their important work. When it was time for William to give his important speech to honor the healthcare workers, everyone in the venue sat quietly and listened respectfully. William stood at the podium looking confident and spoke about how grateful the entire country was for all the hard work and sacrifice of the healthcare heroes. His words were serious and meaningful, and the audience was clearly moved by what he was saying. But little Louis had different ideas about what should happen during this serious moment. After sitting still and quiet for about 5 minutes, Louis decided he was bored with all the talking. He started making silly faces at the television cameras that were recording his father's speech. Louis crossed his eyes, stuck out his tongue just a little bit, and made funny expressions that only the camera operators could see. The people watching on television at home began laughing when they saw Louis's entertaining performance in the background of William's speech. Social media started buzzing with comments about how adorable and funny the little prince was being. People loved seeing that even royal children could be playful and mischievous sometimes. Charlotte noticed what Louis was doing and felt like she needed to be the responsible big sister. She leaned over and whispered seriously in Louis's ear, trying to make him stop making faces and sit properly like a good royal child should. Charlotte used her most serious big sister voice and reminded Louis that everyone was watching them on television. George stood perfectly still during the entire speech, determined to show everyone that he could behave exactly like a proper prince should. He kept his hands folded neatly, his back straight, and his eyes focused on his father. George was concentrating so hard on being perfect that his face looked very serious and grown up for such a young boy. Kate watched nervously from her seat as she saw Louis's antics and Charlotte's attempts to control her little brother. But even though she was worried about what people might think, Kate couldn't help smiling at Louis's playful behavior. She knew that people at home would find it charming and funny rather than disrespectful. When William finished his speech and the audience applauded loudly, he looked over at his family and saw what had been happening. Instead of being upset with Louis, William walked over and picked up his youngest son, carrying him back to the podium. This made Louis giggle loudly and wave enthusiastically at everyone in the audience. The crowd absolutely loved this unplanned moment between father and son. William's decision to include Louis in the final moment of his speech showed everyone that even during important royal duties, family comes first. Louis waved with both hands from his father's arms, making everyone in the venue smile and clap even more. Charlotte saw that Louis was getting attention for his playful behavior, so she decided to create her own special moment. She noticed a little girl about her own age sitting in the audience with her mother, who was one of the honored healthcare workers. Charlotte gave the little girl a gentle wave and a warm smile, creating a sweet connection between two children. The photographers captured this spontaneous moment between Charlotte and the other little girl, and the picture became one of the most popular images from the entire event. It showed how Charlotte was naturally kind and inclusive, wanting to make other children feel special and included even during a royal event. The family was supposed to follow a very strict schedule with specific times for each activity, but the children's natural behavior created wonderful unplanned interactions that were much more meaningful than anything that could have been rehearsed. These spontaneous moments became the most memorable and heartwarming parts of the entire day. Kate found herself crouching down to talk to children in the audience who wanted to meet her, while William patiently answered George's questions about the venue's beautiful architecture and historical details. George was always curious about buildings and wanted to know how old everything was and who had designed it. These genuine, unscripted moments showed everyone that the royal family was real and approachable, not just formal figures who only followed rules and schedules. After the speeches and presentations were finished, the royal family was invited to join the honored healthcare workers for a special lunch in the venue's elegant dining room. Long tables were set with beautiful white tablecloths, shiny silverware, and fresh flowers as centerpieces. The organizers had worked hard to create a perfect setting for this important meal, but they had not fully prepared for the challenge of dining with 3 energetic royal children. Kate and William sat at the main table with Louis between them, while George and Charlotte sat on either side of the family group. The venue staff had thoughtfully prepared special child-friendly meals with smaller portions and foods that children typically enjoy. However, They had not counted on Louis having very strong opinions about what he would and would not eat. When the first course was served, Louis looked at his plate and saw vegetables mixed in with his food. Without any hesitation, he announced, in his clear, loud voice, that he did not like vegetables and did not want to eat them. His declaration was so honest and direct that it made everyone at the table burst into laughter, including the serious healthcare workers who were trying to maintain proper dining etiquette. Kate quickly tried to encourage Louis to at least try the vegetables, explaining that they would help him grow big and strong like his older brother George. But Louis was not convinced by this argument and continued to push the vegetables to one side of his plate with his fork, making it very clear that he had no intention of eating them. Charlotte, meanwhile, was determined to show everyone that she knew how to eat like a proper princess. She carefully placed her napkin on her lap, used her silverware correctly, and took small, polite bites of her food. Every few minutes, Charlotte would glance at her brothers and quietly remind them about their table manners, especially when Louis started playing with his food instead of eating it. George was trying his best to participate in grown-up conversations with the adults at the table. He asked thoughtful questions about the healthcare workers' jobs and listened carefully to their answers. George wanted to show that he could be mature and interesting to talk to, not just a child who needed to be entertained. The healthcare workers were impressed by his genuine curiosity and intelligent questions. Kate spent most of the meal making sure that Louis didn't spill his drink or drop food on his clean clothes, while also trying to participate in the conversations happening around the table. She had to cut up Louis's food into smaller pieces, wipe his face several times, and constantly remind him to use his napkin instead of his sleeves. William helped by cutting up food for both Louis and Charlotte while simultaneously discussing important healthcare topics with the other adults. He had become very skilled at multitasking during family meals, managing parental duties while maintaining serious conversations about his royal responsibilities. The venue staff had prepared special desserts for the children, including small cakes decorated with colorful icing and fresh strawberries. Louis was much more enthusiastic about dessert than he had been about his main course, but he still managed to get chocolate icing on his face and fingers, despite Kate's careful supervision. Charlotte decided to share her dessert with a healthcare worker's daughter who was also attending the lunch. The little girl was sitting at a nearby table and looked a bit shy and overwhelmed by all the formal surroundings. Charlotte asked Kate if she could give half of her cake to the other child, showing the same kind and generous spirit that her parents were always trying to encourage. This gesture of sharing touched everyone who witnessed it, especially the other child's mother, who was one of the honored healthcare workers. It showed that Charlotte understood the importance of kindness and sharing, even during fancy royal events. The two little girls ended up becoming friends and spent the rest of the lunch giggling and whispering together. By the end of the meal, the formal atmosphere had completely transformed into a warm, family-friendly gathering where everyone felt comfortable and relaxed. The healthcare workers realized that the royal family was dealing with the same parenting challenges that all families face, which made them feel more connected and less intimidated by their famous guests. After the lunch was finished, the organizers had arranged for the royal children to participate in special activities with local school children who had also been invited to attend the event. This was meant to be a fun way for everyone to interact and get to know each other better. The venue had several different activity stations set up in a large room next to the dining area. Charlotte immediately gravitated toward the arts and crafts table where younger children were working on a project to make thank you cards for healthcare workers. She sat down next to a 6-year-old girl who was struggling with cutting paper and gluing pieces together. Charlotte patiently showed the little girl how to hold the scissors properly and helped her create a beautiful card with flowers and hearts. The adults watching were amazed to see Charlotte display the same patient teaching style that she had observed from Kate so many times. Charlotte spoke softly and encouragingly to the younger child, never making her feel bad when mistakes happened. She shared her own art supplies and even let the little girl use her favorite colored pencils to finish the card. Louis discovered a corner of the room where children were playing with building blocks and toy cars. He immediately joined the group and started creating an elaborate road system with bridges and tunnels. Louis's creative ideas impressed both the children and the adults who were supervising the activity. He showed other children how to balance blocks to make tall towers and how to create ramps for the toy cars to drive up and down. The other children were delighted to have Louis join their game because he brought so much energy and imagination to their building project. Louis was naturally good at including everyone in the activity and making sure that even the shyest children had a chance to add their own ideas to the construction project. George found himself in a corner where older children were looking at a large world map and discussing different countries. When the children learned that George had traveled to many different places with his parents, they started asking him questions about various countries and their capitals. George was able to share interesting facts about places he had visited and cultures he had learned about. The children were fascinated to hear George's stories about meeting people from different countries and learning about their traditions and customs. George spoke with knowledge and enthusiasm, but never in a way that made other children feel left out or less knowledgeable. He encouraged other children to share their own travel experiences and family stories. Kate watched proudly from across the room as she saw her children interacting naturally with others and showing genuine kindness and leadership qualities. She was particularly touched to see how each child was using their own unique personality and talents to connect with and help other children. William joined a group of children who had started an impromptu football game in the venue's outdoor courtyard. Even though he was wearing his formal suit, William didn't hesitate to kick the ball around with the enthusiastic group of young players. Louis immediately ran over and clung to his father's leg, wanting to be part of the football action too. Charlotte decided to become the cheerleader for the football game, clapping and encouraging all the players from the sidelines. She made up simple chants and got other children to join in cheering for both teams. Charlotte made sure that everyone felt included and celebrated, regardless of their skill level at playing football. The children's natural ability to connect with others and show leadership qualities, even at their young ages, impressed all the adults who were watching. These interactions proved that despite their royal status and privileged upbringing, William and Kate were successfully raising children who could relate to and genuinely care about others from all different backgrounds and circumstances. The healthcare workers and teachers who were present were particularly moved to see how the royal children treated their own children with such warmth and respect. It showed that the values of kindness, inclusion, and empathy were being successfully passed down to the next generation of the royal family. The afternoon activities revealed that each royal child had developed their own special talents and ways of connecting with others, suggesting that they would grow up to be compassionate and effective leaders in their own right. As the afternoon sun began to set over Manchester, it was time for the royal family to say goodbye and begin their journey back home to London. The official schedule said they should walk directly to their waiting cars, but the children had other ideas about how this special day should end. They had made so many new friends and had such wonderful experiences that they didn't want to leave without saying proper goodbyes. Charlotte tugged on Kate's dress and whispered that she wanted to walk through the crowd one more time to say goodbye to all the people who had been so kind to them throughout the day. George nodded in agreement, saying he felt it would be polite to thank everyone personally for coming to see them. Even little Louis, who was getting tired from all the excitement, perked up at the idea of one final walk through the crowd. William and Kate looked at each other and smiled, realizing that their children had learned an important lesson about gratitude and connecting with people. Even though the security team was eager to get the family safely back to their cars, William and Kate decided to honor their children's request for one final interaction with the crowd. As they walked slowly through the gathered people, Louis surprised everyone by giving high fives to children who reached out their hands toward him. He had learned this gesture from watching other children earlier in the day, and he thought it was a fun way to say goodbye to his new friends. Louis's enthusiasm was infectious, and soon children throughout the crowd were reaching out, hoping for their own high five from the little prince. Charlotte had been saving a small collection of special royal pins that she always carried in her purse for emergencies. These pins had the royal family crest on them and were very precious to her. But Charlotte decided that this was the perfect time to share these treasures with people who had made the day so special. She carefully handed out the pins to children and adults who had been particularly kind to her family. George walked alongside his parents, stopping to shake hands with people and politely thank them for coming to the event. He remembered the names of several healthcare workers they had met earlier and made sure to find them in the crowd to say personal goodbyes. George's mature behavior and genuine interest in others impressed everyone he spoke with. As they continued walking, Someone in the crowd pointed out a little girl who was celebrating her birthday that day. Her mother had brought her to see the royal family as a special birthday treat. When the royal children heard about this, they immediately gathered around the birthday girl and started singing happy birthday to her, with big smiles on their faces. The entire crowd joined in singing happy birthday to the little girl, creating a magical moment that no one had planned but everyone would remember forever. The birthday girl was so happy and surprised that she started crying tears of joy, and her mother thanked the royal family over and over for making her daughter's birthday so incredibly special. As they finally reached their cars, Louis turned around one last time and started blowing kisses to the crowd with both hands. This gesture made everyone cheer and applaud loudly one final time. Louis continued blowing kisses until he was safely inside the car and could no longer see the waving crowd through the window. The drive home was much quieter than the morning journey had been. All three children were tired but very happy as they settled into their seats for the long trip back to London. They spent the first part of the journey sharing their favorite moments from the day and talking about all the interesting people they had met. Charlotte talked about the little girl she had helped with arts and crafts and how proud she felt when she was able to teach someone something new. George described his conversations with the healthcare workers and how much he had learned about their important jobs. Louis was most excited about the football game and kept asking when they could play football with their new friends again. William and Kate exchanged proud and satisfied looks as they listened to their children process the experiences of the day. They could see that the children had not only behaved beautifully throughout the entire event, but had also learned valuable lessons about kindness, service, and connecting with people from all walks of life. As the royal convoy made its way through the countryside toward home, the family felt a deep sense of satisfaction knowing they had successfully honored the healthcare heroes, while creating beautiful memories that would last a lifetime for everyone involved. The unexpected royal visit had become a perfect example of how formal duties and genuine human connection could work together to create something truly special and meaningful.